miss disasters. Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about why I feel game jams are important and why I feel it's really important to go there if you're, just getting started in the industry, the kind of benefits you can get out of it, and also encourage you maybe to run game jams in your local community. So the structure of the talk is going to be, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. I'm going to look up here as well. A little bit about me. What is a game jam? The kind of, what kind of game jams are out there, so talk about some of the different things that are currently available. Why game jams are, well, I think they're good. Things to think about if you want to organize jams, things to think about if you want to attend jams. And then also some stories. So I have a really nice position of working with a company called Global Game Jam. And if you don't know, it's well, I'll tell you more about it in a bit, but we work in over 108 countries across the world. So it's a really nice opportunity to get some insight into some of the stories and situations that kind of happen all over the world. So this talk's for you if you already run game jams and hackathons and want some advice. If you're interested in running maybe an event for your community group, if you want to know a bit more about game jams and find out what makes them good and what's already out there, if you want to find out more about the positive effect that jams have on people and the community around them. So I do various different things. So I run or I help with a community group in my hometown in Brighton called Make Play Code. That's an event for women to make their first video game. So we run workshops and we also have a brunch every month, which is very, very nice. I run an event called Pixels and Prosecco each year, which is, again, a showcase for the different work that women do in the industry and talking about what contribution they make. We also have lots of fizzy wine and cake. So as a kind of like a difference to the pizza and beer culture you generally see at these events. And I also help produce an event in London called Now Play This in a cultural gallery there called Somerset House. We get to show lots of weird and wonderful games, as mentioned, to the general public and present a really playful exhibition each year for part of London Games Festival. So I like games. I want more people to make games, especially from people that maybe don't have a background in making games, that haven't been trained to make games, because I think they can bring new perspectives and ideas into the work that they create. I want more people to see games as like a creative medium, like you would use a paintbrush as an artist. I really feel that game creation can just be seen as an artistic tool. And I want to see more diverse perspectives across the games that are made. So game jams, I think, are a way of achieving some of these goals. And so it's a great way to think about diversity, and Global Game Jam especially in terms of country and geography, and also cultural diversity. But also it's something that can promote new work and voices from around the world and bring it into a more world stage. So if you don't know what a game jam is, it's like a hackathon. So you get together generally for around 48 hours, and you create a game in that space of time. So generally you'll team up with people, and there might be a theme sometimes, and over that time you create a game together. And there's quite a number of game jams currently out there. So if you go on itch.io/jams, as you can see, this is just a small slice of the section of the calendar that's on that page. So there are kind of hundreds, and these generally are all online jams, so it will be someone's gone onto the site and created an event. You can sign up to the event on the website. And, I think there's a unicorn jam up there. There's all kinds of stuff, Halloween games, it's October now. So there'll be something for kind of everybody on that site happening all of the time. So if you want to just kind of go and on the privacy of your own home, give it a go and try it out, it's a really nice way just to start exploring the kind of scope and scale of what you can create during that time. Global Game Jam, it's the world's biggest on-site game jam. So something that's a bit unique about it is it's not an online jam. You have to actually attend a site within the world. But we do have, it is within, last year it was within 108 countries, and it had over 800 sites. So there generally is a site near you. And if there isn't, then we can support you as a community to try and set one up with you. Even if it's just really small, we really like to see as many people from as many places getting involved. And so everybody in the world jams at the same time over their time zone. So you start at 5 p.m. on the Friday, but obviously that in New Zealand is very different from Hawaii. So it runs like all the way around the world, and it's like a 27-hour difference. But everyone's jamming to the same theme. So there'll be a global theme that everyone's working towards across the whole world, and it's really interesting to see how that theme gets interpreted differently in different places and different languages, for example. The goal for the event is for innovation, collaboration, and experimentation. So the idea is it's not a competition. Everyone gets together and works together and tries to create something interesting for the weekend. Lidum Dare is another really big one. That's the biggest online jam. It was first held in 2002. And the theme is kind of voted for by the community. So there's like a big melting pot of themes, and you kind of do a which is best click vote on each one. And at the end, the best one gets the theme. It happens every 4 months, so the theme becomes that for the next 4 monthly jam. One of my favorite ones was a recent one called, which was combine two incompatible genres, which produced some very interesting games where you shot poetry out of your FPS canon, poetry canon, and made the narrative better and things like that. It was really good. And that happens on a regular basis. There's been 42 so far. Train jams are really a cool example of a jam. So some of you might have heard of this one. This one happens before GDC every year. So they start off in Chicago, and they get the train, which I've probably written how long it takes. A long time. 52 hours. So the train all the way from Chicago to San Francisco, and it started off small, but now they rent the whole train. And the games that they make on that journey are then showcased at GDC. So it's a really nice kind of event package of that sort. Then there's the 1 hour game jam. So this happens every week, every Saturday at 8 o'clock ETC. The nice thing about this one is, so there's a theme each week, and after each hour jam, they play all of the games together on Twitch. So everybody after the jam comes together on Twitch and plays all the games that were made. And because of that, they've brought a really nice community together who are all talking about and helping each other because everyone's seeing the work that everybody makes. And that's actually something I recommend at a physical jam as well. If you're running an event, it's really nice to be able to get together at the end of that event and show the work that everybody's been working towards that weekend. And then similarly, there's the 0 hour game jam, which is one of my favorites. So this happens when the clocks go back in the winter, so it technically takes 0 hours. The top advice is get drunk. It's easier to be happy with your work, which I subscribe to. And there are no rules to this one at all. Basically, it's pretty anarchistic. Anyone can kind of do whatever they want. But it's a really nice idea in the fact, we've made this game in the free time that we never really had. There's Splash Jam, which happens on a ferry that goes around Norway in the winter, which is very, very lovely, apart from the seas get pretty rough, so it can be a little bit of a challenge. And then Castle Jam as well, which happens each year in a Swedish castle. And their kind of steer is more towards trying to nurture people into the industry. So they have journalists and mentors and publishers that so it's a week-long jam, and they'll look at your games at the end, and it's more of a competition, and they want to try and support you pushing that game further into the industry and actually developing it into a full game. So that's some good examples. Obviously, there's loads more. They're some of my favorite ones. So why game jams? So they're quick. It's really good to be able to just give yourself like a set period of time. You know, you've got this game that you want to finish, and it drags on for months and months and months. Like a game jam is a really good way to say, right, for the next 24 or 48 hours, this is the only thing I'm doing, and I'm going to actually finish something. It's a good way to meet new people, especially the physical space jams that you meet at, but also online. You know, there's a lot of communities now which are very, very strong online that you can also meet new people with. It's a great way to prototype ideas. So again, you've probably got a game design notebook somewhere in your bag which has got like 40, 50 game ideas in. You're like, I'm never going to get around to any of these. So it's a really nice way to actually pull one of those out and work on it for a dedicated amount of time. It forces people, especially people that maybe are new to the industry or students, it forces them to think about scope and realize that everybody always overscopes on everything they try and do, and it's a very solid example. The first game jam you complete, and you've only completed like 1/10 of the things you wanted to get done. So it's a harsh lesson, but learned in a safe environment. And we hope it's fun. Sometimes it's fun, not always. So I think that game jams help get a new, more diverse generation of developers into the events. We hope that it kind of lowers the barrier for people that want to kind of experiment and take part, but maybe aren't professionals or don't feel comfortable like doing this on a professional level yet, but want to find the community and support. And they also encourage like the democratization of game development. So I really feel like game jams have gone hand in hand recently with all of the free development tools and environments that you now see popping up. And it's a really nice way, like people can take part for free, basically. They've helped get a more diverse generation of developers involved in making games, skin color, sexuality, background, and they encourage, I've already said that, that's twice, good. Well done, me. Okay, so when you organize game jams, there's a few things to think about. And this kind of goes along with what I was saying about what you want to get out of your event, right? So think about how long you want it to be. 1 hour is a really good time to develop like a small prototype, maybe just something that you've been thinking about for a while. You want to see if the mechanic is fun. 1 hour is a really good way just to push and think about how can I just push this a little bit further. 24 hours is good to sort of do a rough sketch of a game, maybe develop it a little more than your little prototype, but just like, is this going to work if I spend more time on it? 48 hours, which is the larger jams, kind of gives you an opportunity to work with teammates, apply some audio, put some fancier graphics in, maybe do 1 or 2 things on the to-do list that you couldn't get done in the 24 hours. But it's a really nice time period just to get a playable demo of the idea that you've had. Icebreakers are really good, especially, again, with physical events. So I always make people stand up and say 3 words, because even people that don't like standing up in front of people can just about manage that. It can be a bit challenging, but like 3 words are the things that they're interested in, so people at the event get an idea about that they might want to work with somebody because they're interested in something similar. Or just like 1 sentence about where they're from and what they're interested in. And starting your jam with a social, I always think is a good idea. So rather than like kicking straight off into a work environment, maybe have a dinner or have some drinks. It can be a really nice way to just kind of, especially like British people, like loosen them up a little bit and actually get them talking to each other. I've talked a bit about this, but online jams, you can kind of open up your events and your ideas to more people and a wider audience. But physical jams have the bonus that people kind of work together generally better when they're physically in the same space, and they get to sort of chat to each other and like push each other over the line, which you don't get so much on the online jams because you're kind of just on your own at home. Have a clear code of conduct at your event and be willing to enforce it. There's lots of really good resources online to help you with this if it's not something that you have in place for your community at the moment, including the Geek Feminist Wiki. It's got a lot of really good resources in there. And have an easy way for people to report issues, including an anonymous way, so maybe an online form or an emergency phone number if the event's big enough, that people feel safe to report things to you if needed. This is important because it will mean that more people feel welcome to attend. You know, if they're nervous about coming along, they know that there's a route for them to be able to feel more safe about this. And think about outreach and accessibility as well. My text is now definitely too small for me to read. So choose a wheelchair accessible venue. Have a sign language interpreter for talks, or have the option of having that. Have quiet spaces for people that can't be in like loud rooms or busy rooms for too much and just need some time to chill out. Normalize the use of pronouns, so get people to put the pronouns on their badges as a normal process. Potentially, if you have the budget and can figure out how to do it, consider providing childcare, breastfeeding areas. Consider having alcohol-free spaces for people that don't want to drink or don't drink because of their religion. Have unisex toilets, and think about providing different food options for people as well. And it's something that we worked on with Global Game Jam this year. We've made the kind of accessibility options a lot more public, so it's much easier to see the facilities that people have on the different sites. If there's a group that's not attending your event that you're wondering why, like find some people from that group and talk to them about how to make your event a more welcoming space. No one can really speak on behalf of the other people, and so it's best to just approach the people that you want to be involved in your community and talk to them about how you can tailor your event so they're more friendly for them. And I think, this is a vaguely controversial subject. Like, some people really like going to game jams and crunching and just working all of the time and not sleeping. And personally, I find it a little bit much. Like, as an event organizer, I really like to be able to provide a bit more of a relaxing space. So consider putting on a film in your game jam. Consider doing like more formal lunch and dinner settings to give people a break away from the screen. Consider taking people outside. I know it's a wild idea, but sometimes it actually gives people a really nice break. I ran a jam last year where one of the groups every morning would do a yoga session together, which I thought was very nice. And having been to Finland once, I know that it's absolutely mandatory for every single site in Finland to have a sauna. It's very important. So like using all this stuff, like think about the kind of outcome you want for your event. So Global Game Jam wants collaboration. And so, like I said, we sort of are very particular about making it not a competition in order to create a more friendly environment. Some game jams want the games to be produced for a more specific theme or social issues. So you might find like a social justice jam or similar. We're working with the ADL at the moment to produce an anti-harassment kind of campaign around game jamming. And some jams want playable prototypes that they can develop further. So kind of like the Castle Jam I was saying, they can provide mentors or publishers that can help advise you as to what the next steps to take with your games. And like lastly, most importantly, like people come up to me and ask me like how they start up. Like start small and like use the experiences that interest you to inform and shape your event. Like if you really like board games and knitting, like run an event about board games and knitting, and some other people who like that will come. You'll be surprised. So when you're attending the jams, there's some other things to think about as well. Again, lots of people come up to me and say, oh, well, I don't think I'm qualified enough to go to a game jam. And it's just simply not true. Like, you don't need any qualifications to go to a game jam at all. Here I've listed some tools that I think are like really good, simple tools to get you started, in terms of you don't really need much technical knowledge at all to use them, and they're really quick to make prototypes, simple prototypes with. And anyone within like sort of 5-10 minutes of training can pick up this tool and make a game idea. And don't be afraid to use some time at the game jams to learn stuff, but kind of time box it, like use your Pomodoro technique, so do like 20 minutes of learning or something. Otherwise, you might disappear down a rabbit hole, and then it's Sunday, and all you've done is read Unity documentation, and you're sad. I also think, like, bear in mind, don't get too focused on the theme. The theme's a really good way to direct and get you thinking about the right idea. But if you've had, your game design notebook and you've had something that you've really wanted to work on for ages, you can kind of work out how to squidge that into the theme by some dubious connection in some way. So don't keep throwing away good game ideas that you want to work on just because they don't fit in the theme. You'll figure out a way to make it fit in. I've kind of mentioned this already, but everyone does this. It's don't feel bad. Every single person does this. So once you've had your idea, throw 90% of it away and you maybe will just about finish. I saw a really good talk from Rami from Zambia, who, I don't know if you know their games, but they did games like Nuclear Throne and Ridiculous Fishing. They got asked how long they spend developing a game concept, and they said, we spend 2 days maximum. 2 days is still a bit long, actually, but 2 days maximum, and then we spend 2 years polishing that idea. So that kind of gives you an idea of the idea to polish ratio there. And I think that's a generally good rule to think about when you're coming up with game ideas. How can you tell if your idea is good? Make tiny prototypes and iterate on them. The nice thing about game jams in physical spaces is you can actually get the people who are also making games around you to play your ideas and sort of give you very instant feedback about whether it's fun or not, and that's super, super valuable. Consider prototyping with paper even, just to get the basic mechanics down. Sometimes certain game mechanics don't translate well to paper, but a lot of them you'd be surprised just how you can see very quickly if it's fun or not. And yeah, maybe if you're organizing an event, consider putting in formal playtest sessions where everybody gets together every 5 hours or something and sees the progress and has a go with the games and see if they're fun. So now I've got some stories from around the world. Some of these are not my story. Well, none of these are my stories. So I might need to read some of them a little more, which probably means me sitting down here, to be honest. So with Global Game Jam, we try and keep track somewhat of some of the success stories of the games. And success is defined in many different ways, but one could include publishing, or it could include being included at an event or winning an award. So we tried to write down some of the games that become, more than just the game jam. The kind of biggest examples that you might have heard of is Surgeon Simulator, came from Global Game Jam many years ago. And also Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes came from Global Game Jam as well. There's a whole bunch of them and a page showcasing them on the website if you want to check more of them out. But the kind of interesting thing to me is the effect on the community and how game jams can sort of, like I said at the beginning, bring and highlight the voices from the community and get them heard for a wider audience. So this example, Yuval now volunteers for us as a regional organizer. And he first started working on Global Game Jam in 2008. There were no other events like that in Israel, and the community was very small. And there were no events really targeted at any of the game development community at all, other than casual gatherings. There was no real industry there either, games industry at all. So they ran Global Game Tel Aviv in 2009, and it was a huge success, so much so that many people were forced to work in the yard outside because they couldn't fit in the building. And this showed the need to create further events of a similar type. 2010 saw a new venue, and the participation in the event grew by 50%. Because of the new organizational challenges of creating a bigger event, a small group of core organizers came together from that. And the group of them started organizing more events, such as an annual conference, educational meetups, social gatherings, and game demo days. In 2011, they officially formed Game IS, the Israeli Game Developers Association, a non-profit to help promote game development in the industry in the country. Today, it's a powerful group who organize all of these core events. They talk with government officials and organize delegations to international conferences and exhibitions. And this is all done with the core group that met at the Global Game Jam event in 2009. So Rio Grande is the most southern Global Game Jam that we have in the world. It's right down at the bottom tip of Argentina. Bruno is a very, very passionate, dedicated organizer. So he started off, he discovered Ludum Dare 24 hours before Ludum Dare happened, and he got really excited. He'd never made a game before or programmed before, but the online Ludum Dare community encouraged him to take part, and so he did so with their support and managed to make his first game working at his home. He was kind of spurred on by that idea, and so for the next event, he organized a public gathering for Ludum Dare, which was the first time anyone had organized an event like that in the city that he was in. It was free for everyone to attend, and to his surprise, he gathered about 30 people together. One of them traveled more than 150 kilometers with his old Ford Sierra, a giant electric piano, a lot of instruments, just to participate in his first jam. The lights went off 3 times during the event. We had no water in the bathrooms at night because the neighbor decided to turn it off to spend less money. But having all these floors, we all enjoyed it, with dancing breaks every few hours, ukuleles and singing, cheap pizza. We delivered 6 games based on the theme of shape-shifting, one of which later got showed at PAX Showcase. So hosting this, along with Global Game Jam, became a tradition, with the community coming together to help support each other and learn. The theme of the next Ludum Dare was running out of space. And ironically, all the game jams have done for him is open up his community and open doors. D5 is another really good example of the community coming together. So D5 stands for Dedicated 5, which symbolizes the perfect team in the video game match, like Dota or something like that, I think, which was established in 2016 with the aim of creating a platform for the gaming industry in Africa, in East Africa. They're based in Ethiopia. The first attempt of an event that they ran only had 10 attendees, but they kept growing and growing, and within 2 months, they were hosting bi-weekly events with over 60 people. Since then, they have worked with the Goethe Institute as part of a 2-year creative project on gamification, and the British Council to host development workshops in the country of Ethiopia. They also attended NanaCon, which is a regional gaming event hosted nearby, showcasing work from Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, and Ethiopia. They never dreamed they'd be able to do this community organization as a job, but it's now their full-time position, and the organization keeps going from strength to strength, and we were really happy to welcome them into the Global Game Jam family this year. Evan and Shaz Greenwoods, they're based in South Africa, and they took part, while eating pot noodles and super noodles, they took part in Ludum Dare, and they made a game in Ludum Dare called Broforce. Broforce is a pixelated, chaotic, local multiplayer brawler with over-the-top tongue-in-cheek nod to kind of American patriotism. It's really over the top. There's lots of explosions, if you don't know it. But it's really, really good fun. It got voted 3rd in the competition overall for Ludum Dare. And with some further development, they launched it in 2015. It went on to be worth $3.7 million, with which they founded a studio called Free Lives. Free Lives, as you can see, this is their studio picture. They now support a lot of people working within the South African games industry. And they've made games since, subversive and indie games such as Genital Jousting, which is a real big indie hit. Somebody knows that one. This is another example of a community coming together. So this is within Brazil. Again, they started with Global Game Jam in 2014. But they started a group called BitBite afterwards, which was a monthly meetup, so they could keep meeting each other after the jam. They also attended a regional gaming event hosted nearby, showcasing work from Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, and Ethiopia. The theme of the next Ludum Dare was running out of space. And so for the next event, they organized a public gathering for Ludum Dare. They then transformed this group to be called Pong, which is the incarnation you see up here. And they organize many events, including game jams, and they've recently developed something called Game Jam Plus, which was inspired by the Global Game Jam, which has 15 cities in Brazil jamming at the same time for a weekend, which is super, super cool. The game jam culture in Brazil is actually really, really massive. They absolutely love being part of game jam events. So they run game jams, Game Jam Plus. They also do like expos and things like that as well. One of the games I showed you on the screenshot from the success story is Renaissance. That went on to be featured in the Brazil Game Show, which is the biggest exhibition in the country. Then Zambia. So this was initially started by somebody now that works for a lovely regional, is one of our lovely regional organizers called Site. She started again with Global Game Jam in 2014. She started it in Zambia. So they formed a local development community there and then run Global Game Jam. They made one game for their first year, and it was a slow start, but they worked to bring the community closer together and help it grow. They now run regular game development workshops, which continue to run, even though Site is now in South Africa for university. So she's really happy because the community is still continuing to move and grow, even though she, as a founder, has moved away. Global Game Jam also inspired the setup of a workshop called Games Plus Girls, which generally happened 2 weeks before the Global Game Jam to give girls and women an introduction into game design and development. And that also meant that the gender split and the gender balance at the event was pretty even, 50-50, which is unusual. If any of you have attended a game jam, that you probably know that's quite an unusual situation. They're also working with other Zambian women in technology groups, and they want to run more game jams for women throughout the year. Yes, as I said, Site now works as the African regional organizer and reports that she's made many friends across the whole continent through working with all of the different organizers. So the really lovely thing about Game Jam is we have somebody over each region that looks after the individual sites and supports them where they need help. And then, so this is Gwen. Gwen's from the Philippines, and she does an absolutely incredible job of basically promoting and evangelizing Philippine games within the more global stage. She runs mentoring, and she runs sort of industry events within the country. So this story tells a game called Shots Fired, which was part of the 2015 Ludum Dare event. In the game, you play as a photojournalist turned assassin, finding clues to get revenge on the people that murdered your wife, kidnapped your daughter, and stole your TV. The game went on to develop the game further and put it on Steam Greenlight. And after a slow start, it was picked up by a streamer called Jim Sterling, which meant that it was then greenlit overnight from that stream that happened. They took the game to an indie showcase event in the Philippines, which was actually hosted by Gwen, and the table that they had to display their game was put next to a local indie publisher. The indie publisher then emailed them a couple of weeks later to offer them a publishing deal. It's won awards in China for Best Overseas Games and has had other global nominations, and it's going to be released on Steam and Switch later on this year. So a lovely success story there. And then lastly, I'm going to read you a story. It's a little bit of a long story, but not that long. From Bruno in Argentina. And after the last year's Game Jam event, he sent me this story, and I just really like reading it, because for me it's like why we do this thing, right? So here we have a cultural tradition. If you want a future, if you want to do anything you like for a living, then you at least have to go to Buenos Aires, which is 3,000 kilometers from here, to educate yourself, to make contact with your peers, to be recognized, and to find an actual job. I did it myself, and until this year, I rejected it with all my heart, the idea of coming back to my neighborhood for more than a holiday. In this neighborhood, the suicide rate in young people is one of the highest in Argentina, and the rest of the facts about unhappiness here are as bad as that one. But since Global Game Jam is being held here for the first time, the first one was planned in a house, and we had 20 attendees. We had to move to a bigger space. I got to see people here in a different way. The sites around the world use Global Game Jam to share knowledge and practice outside of work, to have fun, as a nerd camp. But in Rio Grande, it's about stopping to feel like mental and professional, like you're in a mental and professional jail, and feeling part of the world, being able to do something awesome without the need of leaving your loved ones and the land that saw you grow. The people here, accused of being hard to motivate and complicated, were now shaking while presenting their own games, leaving their comfort zones as they were seeing this place as somewhere they could actually enjoy living in. I decided to stay here, to come back and try and make a community of game developers out of these people, and to show the things that I've learned from you, from the times that I went to GDC, the good vibes I always got from everybody I talked to in the industry. I'll do my best to transmit the love that makes us gather all around the world to do games at the same time. And I wanted to thank you and tell you that the effort that most of you do to be kind and motivating actually works. And that's the best story to end on, I think.
Thank you, Joe. Do we have any questions? Oh, I already see one over there.
Hi, Joe.
Hello.
Many thanks for the inspiring talk.
Thank you.
I've been in the industry for a while, but I'm more on a publisher side, so I'm about business for games. I have some technical background. I'm doing mods for a number of games. So I was wondering what is the required minimum skill set to actually participate in the game jam?
Like zero, none.
No, I remember you mentioned that, but how can you contribute something to the project unless you have some actual skills to do stuff?
So you work in publishing, right?
Yeah.
So you've seen lots of games and what games have been successful.
Sure.
So you have lots of good insight and ideas about what makes a successful game. So that's a really good start.
So I can just go there and contribute my ideas?
Ideas, yeah. I mean, you could help make paper prototypes. I really advocate for having producers within teams as well. There's nothing as worse as a game jam team that have got 12 hours to finish something, just going down a massive rabbit hole. And if a producer can pull them out of that and be like, no, you have to focus. Here's your Trello board. There's so many different roles that can be taken into a jam. And also, like I said, it's like a space to potentially learn new stuff as well. The tools I listed on my slide, one of them is one of them is a really favorite tool of mine. It's called Flick Game. It's an online web page, and all you do, it's like paint, right, with really big brushes and a few different colors, and you just draw like a rubbish picture, and then you say, right, when someone clicks on the green, go to this screen. When someone clicks on the blue, go to this screen. So you can kind of make a little interactive story with images. But that's all you need to do is be able to click a mouse in that case. So there's so many tools that you can use that don't require any technical skills at all.
Thank you.
Everybody should make games, yay! Hello.
Hello. So what's your favorite game that was made on an event you organized?
What was that, sorry?
What's your favorite game that was made on something you organized?
I'm not allowed to say my favorite game. So there's so one of the things with Global Game Jam is there's loads of games being made, and really the kind of, the idea behind the event isn't which game's the best, because it's more about the experience you have making it. With the events that I've run, let's think. We had a really cool game about a dodo delivering post. I really like that one. That was good. We had a game for waves called Wave or Wave, as in ignore. It's a very British game. So the idea was at the beginning you'd get a description, you say, okay, you know the people with glasses, a triangle nose, and a hat. And then you just have one button. It's a 3-player local multiplayer game. And if you know the person, you have to wave. And if you don't know, you have to ignore them. And if you wave at something and you don't know, you get really embarrassed, and then like lose all your lives. So that was a favorite as well.
Thank you.
Hello.
So I see that you have a lot of volunteers and stuff regionally all over the world. How many regional representatives do you have in Scandinavia?
In Scandinavia?
Scandinavia, yes.
So we have 2, I think. So Melina, who looks after everywhere but Finland, and then it was Anna Kaiser, but she stepped down this year, so it's somebody called Kim, who's new this year, who looks after Finland. Anybody else? No.
Okay, well then, thank you. If you have any questions in private for Jo, just come over and ask her. And thanks for listening.
Thanks, everybody.